One of the first things that the board members of the Chapel Foundation did was to sit down and look at the number of organisations around the country that are doing really good work with homeless youth. And our intention for that was to try and identify those that were doing the best work, but that also had the most need and could benefit from the work and the name of the Chapel Foundation. So we could all direct the funds that we raised to the programs that required them and could do the best they could with the money that we had to offer. So very early on, one of the first people we met was Bernie Shakeshaft. Now, it became pretty unanimous very early on, very clearly, that Bernie's work, his commitment, and the results that he was achieving meant that his organisation, BackTrack, was the first recipient for funds raised by the Chapel Foundation. Bernie has a simple mission: to help as many young people having a hard time as possible. Bernie's here tonight with 3 of his young people, Zach, Phil and Cindy. Would you please make them welcome?
Long walk from table 40.
It's a long walk from table 40, it is. Yes. Bernie, just give us a bit of an understanding of your motivation, how you came to this organisation, how you founded this.
Look, I've been messing around in this business for the best part of 30 years. Frustration was what made us start BackTrack. We kicked off, much like your organisation, the Chapel Foundation, with a group of volunteers. There was a gap in the system and we started filling gaps. The more we started filling those gaps, the more gaps that seemed to pop up. It's the right thing to do. There's a report out now that says 20% of the kids in this first world country are in no form of employment, education or training. Homelessness, far and above all, is the thing that stops you first. It goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't have somewhere safe to stay, don't worry about getting a job. That's where we started, and we've had over 1,000 young people through the program. We just dig in and do what needs to be done.
And just explain the program. What happens when, well, first of all, how do you identify those that are going to be accepted into the program, and then what do they do?
You get accepted into the program if you're having a tough time. Where you're from, where you live, the colour of your skin, your age, doesn't really matter to us. We work with kids who are having a hard time. 3 fantastic examples here. Housing was the last one that we put in because it's obviously the most expensive and it's really difficult, but it's obviously the most important as well. We've got our own classroom. We fund that independently. We teach kids work skills. We get them into jobs. 87% of the kids that we work with, and we're working with the kids that, and I'm going to be gentle here, that have been rejected by family, by society, by communities, by the education department. They've got pretty good career paths with unemployment. We turn that stuff around. Nearly 90% of the young people, and 1,000 young people that we've worked with over the past 13 years, are into full-time jobs or into full-time education and training. What you're going to hear from some of these young fellas now are these guys are leading the way. If you want to see a tough gig, anyone's welcome to come and have a look. If you want to see a no bullshit fucking, excuse me, Muck and I said, Shane dared me to swear on stage, and so here I am doing it, and because he's the wild boy now I have to be as well. We'll be outside having a ciggy later on. It's what we do. Wherever the gap is in the system, we fill it. It's highly successful, and I take my hat off to everybody that's here tonight, chipping in for a really worthy cause.
Zach, give us a bit of an understanding about your story and how you ended up meeting Bernie. What was the path to get there?
Well, we're right?
Yeah.
Right, well, I'm actually from Alice Springs. Grew up there till I was about 12 with Mum. Dad wasn't there, don't know why, but So yeah, I grew up Alice Springs, grew up on about 2-3 different town camps. All you really see there is unemployment, violence, domestic abuse, drugs, alcohol, and it's nothing for us, you know. Like, you don't want to grow up having to watch that and then thinking, you know, I'm going to be that one day, and watching uncles carry on stupid. But, you know, always knew there was meant to be something more. And Dad's side of the family, I never knew him till I was about 12. My older brothers actually got older mum, and, you know, how would you like him to come down here and stay with us for a bit? And I like to tell myself it's because I was becoming a man and hormones, and I didn't know, like, you know, mum can't teach me how to be a man because, you know, shit. And so yeah, as a kid I just jumped on the plane, come down here, jumped off the plane at Sydney Airport, freaking out, and people rushing everywhere, and then I got these two strange blokes staring at me, weird, big smiles on their face, and I'm thinking, these are the people I got to live with. So yeah, you know, I did it, and so I was in Gunnedah for about 2 years or so, and yeah, same thing as it was in Alice Springs, you know, first month was good. Then I started meeting everyone, getting in with the wrong crews, not coming home sometimes, and at the time it wasn't really look at what I'm doing to them, it's look what they're doing to me, because they're telling me don't do this, don't do this. Of course you're going to do that as a kid, because you're told not to touch a hot stove, you're going to touch a hot stove. And so yeah, I was there for a bit, then just running amok, you know, drugs, fucking thieving, and nothing that I'm proud of. But one thing I am proud of is one of my deputy principals. She saw me and one of my friends, Jacko, and she just pulled us aside and thought, you know, how would you boys like to do a program on a property 3 days a week with some dogs? And we thought, well, that's 2 days of school, so we don't got to come here. Yeah, definitely. So, you know, I just jumped in straight away and started the program, met Bernie, met the dogs, fell in love with the way that they treat us. You know, at school and in the community, we feel like we're treated like kids. So that's what we give them, you know, like you want us to be kids, we'll give you kids. Whereas when I come into the program with Bernie and most of the other youth workers at the time, you know, they're just straight up respect, nothing but respect, treating you like an adult, and that just makes you want to step up in life and think, well, you know, there's no point doing this. Do I want to be a 30-year-old man running around the streets with little kids? No, that does not look good to people these days. So yeah, I just dived in, then ended up coming across to Armidale. Was coming across on Monday, stay till Friday, and then go back to Gunnedah over the weekend. I was doing that with my friend's mum. She was bringing us back and forth, and I found out I had family in Armidale. Thought, just dive in there, you know, make it easier on Kylie, and doesn't have to keep bringing me across. And so I moved in, and not really knowing what I was getting into, but you know, it was hard being away from my family, getting thrown into another family, having them all accept me and me feel like I'm not welcome. And then you got the constant 5 o'clock, like 5 a.m. wake-ups. Not happy wake-ups, not I need to wake up. Drunks coming in, banging on your door. Hey, give me a lighter. I haven't got a lighter. Leave me alone, I'm trying to sleep. I've got to get up, I've got to go to work tomorrow. You know, at the time I was hating school, but now I'm working in the classroom. So I love it, you know, and without BackTrack I wouldn't have been able to do none of that, because when shit was getting hard, they're the ones that took me in. They gave me a bed, they gave me a meal, and let me have a shower and so on, you know. And without that, I couldn't imagine anyone else that would do that with a bunch of boys that just run amok on the streets and, oi, come stay out at my place, you know. Shit, could have burnt the house down. He wouldn't have cared.
I can imagine another bloke, because he's doing it now with all the 50 kids that we're working with daily. I take my hat off to him. Extraordinary young man, going places.
Just before I get to Phil and Cindy, I just want to ask you, Bertie, tell us about the dogs. Zach was talking about the dogs. What's the work you do with the dogs?
Look, dogs are the greatest thing in our program. We use dogs, we keep 30 working dogs. We visit old people's homes with them. We compete in, you know, we've won world records in the last 2 Australian titles in working dog high jump events. But what it does is, originally it was designed as an engagement tool, because anyone that's got a dog knows how powerful they are. So we put dogs around around the young people, and it gives them a chance to win and survive and to get up on that main stage and really go somewhere. Do you know there's only two? We've had 4 universities been researching us, and so I'm so glad again that the Chapel Foundation's behind something that's working, that's absolutely proven to work, and that goes the extra yards. But there are only 2 local government areas in New South Wales with juvenile crime stats with downward trends. Now, the top 4 universities in Australia have been researching this. First thing they measured was juvenile crime stats. 2 LGAs in New South Wales with downward trends. One is Tweed Heads, down 0.2% or something. Armidale is down 65%. 65%. How do we do that? As a group of volunteers. When do kids get in trouble? What nights? Weekends, definitely. Weekends, definitely. What do kids get in trouble for?
Drugs and violence.
Drugs and violence and on the piss and out of control. When you take, and this is a very known statistic, 20% of the people, kids, do 80% of the crime, yeah? Take those 20% out of town at the times of highest risk, watch your crime rate drop down. We have never, ever been away on a dog jumping weekend. I think we did 35 volunteer weekends last year, travelling on the road with the dogs, competing, winning, breaking world records, winning Australian championships with these boys and the motley crew that follow them around. They're a pretty amazing example.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Of how we do stuff. And I just love the dogs. Like, when a new kid comes in, we just let a whole mob of dogs go. And they tell us something. Oh, this is my favourite. Got the dog that won't shut up. Even though the kid that comes in, he might be quiet in the first day or 2, but yap, 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 yap all day like the dog. ADHD dog, ADHD kid. Fat lazy dog, fat lazy kid. We know so much about those kids. We use them as our first point of working out whether the kids, what the kids like. And they're in every part of our program.
Phil, give us your story.
Well, I was born in Newcastle and it wasn't too good down there. I was on drugs, breaking into cars. My parents were always fighting. Every afternoon I come home from school, they were always out. So I'd walk away, go and break into cars, go and hang out with mates and get on the drugs. One day I woke up one morning and Mum wasn't there. I asked Dad, where did she go? She said, oh, she moved away, I don't know where. So I was like, oh, well, I'm going, Dad. I'll see you when I see her. So I ran off for a while and I come back and Dad wasn't too well. He was a bit crook and I said, Dad, can I please go up and see Mum? He said, yeah, we'll go up and see her. So I moved up there to Uralla to see Mum with Dad, and that's where I met all my older brothers, my older sisters, and went to school up there, and it wasn't too good for me. I was getting bullied, not reading and writing properly, always getting bullied for doing the wrong thing. So I just started walking out of classes, started not going to school, doing nothing at all, just telling the teachers where they belong and all that. So one day the principal walked into the room and said, Phil, can I have a word with you? I thought I was in a bit of trouble. I don't know about this one. So I did. I walked into the office and she said, do you want to join this program called BackTrack? Oh, I don't know. I started thinking for a while and I said, yeah, sure, I'll have a go. So I walked in. I was a bit shy. I was like a shy pup walking into a mob of people. Just don't know no one here. I'm not going to go. So I seen the boys. We were like a big family. Like, came and introduced me to them all.
And it feels like you belong?
Yeah.
And is it a similar story to Zach? You feel the respect that you have for each other and it makes you want to step up?
Yeah.
Phil, how many kids in your family?
16.
16. You got your own cricket team, brother. With some reserves, yeah? So Phil came in to Warra. Where would you have stayed if you weren't at Warra?
Would have been on the streets, in cars, on the bridges, just seeing where I can camp for the night tonight.
Tracy, I can feel her eyes burning in the back going, that's my job, you stop asking the questions. Where are you at now?
I got we're renting a house and all that, thanks to BackTrack. We've got his own house with Cindy and that, one of the other boys. So yeah, I've got a better house than my own dad. His house ain't the best. He still says to this day, you've got a better house than me. You're growing up.
So
Cindy?
you've got your own house now. You got a job?
That's it.
Well done.
We didn't take
Well
him
done,
into
Phil.
that. Down here.
Cindy? Oh, thanks very much. Thanks for that, Bernie. Yeah, I get to ask a question. Cindy, can you tell us about yourself?
I'm from Zimbabwe. I was born in a town called Gweru, and we moved here when I was in preschool, pretty much, like just finishing preschool. And I live here with my uncle and auntie, but since I've been living with them for this long, I call them mum and dad, because my dad passed away and my mum handed me over to my auntie and uncle. When my parents told me that then like I was adopted and all that, it just got to my head, and yeah, I reacted real bad about it. And I started thinking to myself that since you're not my parents, I don't have to listen to you guys and all that. And a couple years after, I got almost kicked out of school and suspended for like four weeks or something for getting into a fight. And when I got back home from getting suspended, I got kicked out of home by dad, and I had nowhere to go except for my best mate's house. He took me in, his family took me in as well, and I lived there for a couple of days. My last couple of days of school, they introduced me to BackTrack, and I went there for like 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, every week, and I still mucked up, so dad decided to come up to me and tell me that he'd send me back to Zimbabwe, so I went back there for a year. It was the hardest year I've ever had. He wanted me to see how good I have it over here compared to over there, but yeah. When I came back, I wasn't in the program anymore. I went to school and still didn't like school because I'm like a hands-on person. I don't like sitting in one spot. I can't do it. And I asked my friend, because he was also at BackTrack, if I could come back, just randomly left school and come back. And he said, yeah, I could do it. So I came with him, went through the gates, and I was expecting Bernie and all that to say, oh, you're not enrolled in here, you're not meant to be here, get out. But everyone there would welcome me, they would open hands and said, yeah, you're righty. And from then, they've been my family, and yeah, they've looked after me.
I've got to let you guys sit down and enjoy the evening as well, but I just very quickly want to ask each of you, how differently do you see your future now? I mean, I imagine that when things weren't going right for you, when you didn't feel like you had a stable home to live in, when you were just moving from place to place, not sure where your next meal was going to come from, what you considered your future was then and what you consider your future is now, given the incredible changes you've made to your lives. Zach?
Well, for starters, I can actually see a future now. Like, I can picture myself doing something rather than being an alcoholic or a drugger or, you know, something along them lines. And yeah, all I know is I just want to help as many people as I can and, you know, split this wall up between, you know, people that, like, a lot of people don't even realise what's happening around us in these towns, and need to get awareness about it and let people know, no, there are kids out there like us sleeping on the streets. I guarantee there's 10 kids right now within 4 blocks of this place that's probably sleeping on the streets tonight. And yeah, that's my dream, is to just let everyone know we're there for them, we will help you. There's no one that will turn down. And so yeah, I just want to help as many people as I can, I guess.
Phil?
Mine's a bit like Zach, but I want to help younger fellas out that's been through the same problem as me, same neighbourhood and all that stuff. I just want to help them out so they can look up at me saying, how did you get there? I want to help them out so they can get the same place where I'm at, so they can have the best time of their life instead of being living in the dumps and all that.
It's about someone just lending you a hand, isn't it?
Yeah.
Taking some interest, giving you an opportunity. And Cindy?
My whole point was to prove my dad wrong, because he used to say that I'm hanging around the wrong crew and I'm not going to go anywhere with the crew that I'm hanging around with. But because of BackTrack, I'm going somewhere with the wrong crew.
Boys, thank you so much. Enjoy your evening tonight. Thank you. Bernie, thank you so much. Thank you. Well done. Well done, boys. Well done.